In 1919, a Canadian teenager with a 6th-grade education arrived by train into Los Angeles. Within a decade, he had transformed himself into a world-renowned occult scholar, with many celebrities as his disciples. His name was Manly Palmer Hall. Time to meet the Master of Mysteries here on Things Visible and Invisible. Louis Sahagun recently retired as a staff writer at the Los Angeles Times. He covered everything from religion, culture and the environment to crime and politics. He was on the team of LA Times writers that won the Pulitzer Prize and was again on the team that was a finalist for the same prize in 2015. And he joins me down the line from his home in California. Louis, welcome to Things Visible and Invisible.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Louis, let's begin at the beginning. You have unearthed a very strange tale, the Master of Mysteries. Most people will not know anything about the protagonist of your book, so let's start in Canada.
Manly Palmer Hall was an American mystic whose career spanned 70 years. And in that time, he wrote more than 200 books, gave 8,000 lectures, most of them from a throne-like chair on a stage. No notes, no water to clear his throat. And he would lecture for 90 minutes, as if reading a scroll unfurling over the heads of his audience about ancient religious teachings, rituals, allegories, and he was absolutely mesmerizing. What no one knew is that as he's doing this and becoming incredibly influential in politics and entertainment industry, presidents had his books on their shelves, actors, went to him, politicians used him as a confidant. What no one knew is that he had a 6th-grade education and that he was absolutely self-taught and had been abandoned by his father and mother at birth. And so this man who, and I knew none of this until I got a strange phone call from a tipster one hot summer night in 1990 to say, LA Times, you better get an obituary ready. The greatest philosopher of all time has died. Until that night, I knew none of this. But after the call, I went to our archives at the LA Times because I told my editor that night, hey, we've got this influential LA fellow who died. This guy says we should have an obituary prepared. So I went into the archive and lo and behold, I saw hundreds of news articles published in the LA Times from the 20s all the way to the 80s. Well, most of them were between the 20s and the 50s about this man and what he had to say about the Japan invading, Pearl Harbor and, the start the World War II in the Pacific, virtually everything. And so I only had room for 10 paragraphs for the obit. I did that, but then I later learned that police believe he was murdered. He did not die of natural causes, and the murder was horrific. So I dove into his life and times with both feet.
Well, that's a wonderful sort of preamble, if I may say, Louis. In the best Hollywood tradition, I almost feel like we're watching a film where an experienced journalist suddenly comes across a sort of mysterious character. Unfortunately today, though, if you were to stop the average person on the street in United States or in Europe and ask them about Manly Hall, they would have no idea who you're talking about, which is also part of the kind of myth around this man. That why did he disappear? Why did he why was he so famous? And then he came from obscurity, became famous, and then retreated to obscurity, it seems. So let's begin at the beginning. Talk to me a little bit about where he came from, his early days, what we know of it anyway.
Yes. Manly Hall was born on March 18, 1901 in a hospital in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. His father, immediately after he was born, his father, a dentist, abandoned the family. His mother gave the baby to her mother, his grandmother, and said, "You take it." And she went to start a career as a chiropractor in the Alaskan goldfields. Manly was raised by his peripatetic grandmother, and all the way until he was 18 years old. And during that time, oddly enough, he got to meet Houdini, the magician, the stage magician in New York, and they argued over the validity of the Indian rope trick and what have you. Try to imagine. So when his grandmother died, this boy who had a 6th-grade education and no one to turn to jumped on a train and headed to Southern California to join his mother, reunite. His mother lived in Santa Monica, California at the time. And Southern California was a shining, regarded as almost a new Canaan in the United States. It was a kind of a promised land. There were plane builders, ship builders. The Hollywood entertainment industry was blossoming. Oil derricks everywhere you look. So this place was exploding in a way all its own. Hall is this big lug of a kid with an uncertain future, and he goes for a walk one day on the Santa Monica Pier. And during that walk, he looks in a window of a phrenology shop. This was a shop run by a Civil War era doctor metaphysician who, for a fee, would read the bumps on your head that tell you about your personality, your fate, your cycles of life. Paul goes in there and meets this tiny little doctor with long blonde hair and character, and they become best friends. It's Hall's best friend and only friend. Try to imagine Hall's over 6 feet tall, shaped like an avocado. He's already immense, and this little tiny doctor, metaphysical doctor. The doctor starts telling him about the esoteric notions of ancient Babylonians, Egyptians, Madame Blavatsky and her great white brotherhood in the Himalayan mountaintops, and more. Paracelsus, who became one of Hall's, unfortunately, one of his, somebody that he followed maybe a little too literally, as maybe we'll get to that later. So the old man says to him one day, "Kid, you really picked this up fast. You're a fast learner. I give lectures on all this stuff on a bank down the street. Why don't you try it out? I'll take you there. You give a lecture. I think you're ready." So Hall and Sidney Brownson go to that place above a bank, a room, and there's like just a handful of old men and women in there. That's the audience. And Hall gave his very first lecture, and it was on reincarnation. They earned $1.65 in donations, and they split it later. They celebrated over bowls of ice cream. Next thing you know, Hall it becomes, everyone wants to hear this kid. He's amazing. He's mesmerizing. Already, he had a perfect memory, which made people think. It created the illusion almost that he was channeling this information from the great beyond.
Well, before we go further, Louis, I'm intrigued to know a little bit about Hall, because he's associated with sort of Eastern, occult, theosophy, sort of exotic religious varieties that were swirling around Southern California at the time. But what was his actual ethnicity and religious background? I mean, did he have any kind of background in that, or was this completely something that he stumbled upon when he arrived in Los Angeles?
That is a really good question. And the answer is this. Yes, he did have an inkling. When he reunited with his mother, he discovered that, oh, my mother is a Rosicrucian. She was a congregant of a Rosicrucian fellowship in Oceanside to the south of LA, California. And that's a really interesting, I came to believe, an interesting aspect of his life, because he's soaking all this up at Brownson's office, and he's reading on his own, and he's got this photographic memory. And now he could turn to the mother who had abandoned him and say, Mommy, do you love me now? Look what I know. I know all about these things that you're interested in, even maybe more than you and the people that are teaching you. Look at me. I'm a rising star in your spiritual milieu.
Wow.
And I think that was a driving force.
But I mean, in a sense, Louis, I mean, he arrived in Los Angeles. You painted the picture. It was thriving on many different fronts, economically, but also the entertainment, the burgeoning Hollywood industry was just starting. I mean, was it just a matter of sort of accident, if we can put it like that, that he ended up moving into the sphere of exotic religiosity, as opposed to maybe walking into a studio in Hollywood and becoming a great director or a great writer or even maybe a great actor?
And that's also a great question. And it's quite remarkable. I have to hand it to him. I mean, we should all be so lucky. So he's in his late teens or 20, and he finds himself a congregant at one of many churches in LA at that time that were set up for basically new arrivals who were religious free thinkers, And so Manley is a congregant. Next thing you know, the pastor at this church, he leaves, and they turn to the kid who seems to know so much about so many things, and they say, "How would you like to be pastor of the church?" He's only 20 years old. So next thing you know, the congregants in turn are saying, "Young man, who is Madame Blavatsky?" Or, "Young man, could you please tell us about astrology and how I could incorporate it in my life, maybe to get a better job?" Manley then would hole up in the LA library at the time and read everything, come back the next Sunday and say on the throne, "Well, folks, today we're going to talk about how astrology can improve your life." Okay, so he's answering the questions. All right. He also had this habit, among other things, when he would meet, two congregants in that church were heiresses of one of California's wealthiest oil families, Carolyn Lloyd and her daughter, Estelle. And one day, this pastor, the new kid in charge, after his sermon, she went up to him and said, "Young man, you will never have to worry about money as long as you live." And she wrote him in to get a cut of her royalties for his whole life. And it paid for trips around the world and a fabulous library. Okay, he had a habit also of introducing himself this way. "I think I knew you in a past life."
Very good.
And people would say, "What? Are you crazy?" No. I think I knew you. "Well, when? What are you talking about?" "Well, it was at Plato's, one of his lectures in the olive groves in ancient, Greece." "What? Yeah, you were a student there." Next thing you know, he's got them in the palm of it.
Totally.
He had a lot of tricks like that. And so next thing you know, his best friends are actress Anna May Wong, Bela Lugosi, who
Yes.
he famed through his performance as Count Dracula in the 1932 or 33 movie, or 1938 movie.
31 actually, but anyway.
Yeah. Oh, and so next thing you know, Warner Brothers. And now he's influential. Everyone knows him. Why do they know him? Why do they want to know him? Because Manley knows things no one else does, he says. He knows secrets.
Well,
everyone wants to get close to him to get an edge on the competition.
Well, just before we get into that, because this is absolutely fascinating, Louis, I want to just paint a little bit of a picture, though, because Southern California at this time, Los Angeles in particular, seemed to be a magnet for kind of New Age, what we would term New Age today, I guess, theosophy. Every single guru going seemed to be heading to Los Angeles and seemed to not only find a reception, but find similar people to Manly Hall, that they were finding people who were able to fund them and propagate their message, etc., etc. Why do you think that was? What was in the air in Southern California at the time that made it so susceptible to these new religions, these exotic religions? Some would say bordering on sort of quackery, charlatans. Everybody was heading to LA. What was going on, Louis?
One of the things I learned is that Manly Hall, when he came to California, it was the right time for someone like him because the area was filling up with these free thinking types, Masons, Rosicrucians, Theosophists, and all manner of religious seekers in between. The other thing is that as I look out my window right now, it is reaching roughly 80 degrees and clear skies. We don't have weather in California. It's always like this. And we also had almost infinite flatlands, developable flatlands, riven with streams and foliage, and it was a paradise. And no snow, no tornadoes, no hurricanes. And there was a sense that this was the tip of this spear of a new, of the future of the nation itself, if not humanity. Yeah. And so these people were setting up shop. This kid, though, he was a teenager, and he's immense, mesmerizing, these, hypnotic blue eyes. And he was a walking encyclopedia on things esoteric of all manner. And then he also would talk about what's to come, and people he was set himself apart as a kind of a Don Quixote, kind of a little crazy, a little mad, and inviting people, though, to join him on a journey along a path to enlightenment and supernatural powers.
Absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, Louis, we have come to the end of our first segment together. But it's nicely poised. You've painted the picture well of the ascent of this modern guru. We'll have to return again to the second half of this story, though, which is a salutary lesson maybe in fame, fortune, and dabbling in things that we know nothing about. Tell people where they can find out more about you and where they can pick up a copy of your biography of this fascinating character.
Where's the book available?
Yes, please.
Yes. Well, the book is available at libraries, fine booksellers, internet booksellers around the world, and of course from the publisher feralhouse.com.
Thank you very much, Louis, for coming on Things Visible and Invisible.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Things Visible and Invisible. We're dedicated to uncovering phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality, from ancient enigmas and paranormal encounters to scientific anomalies and forgotten histories. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysterious and unexplained, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell to stay updated on future explorations. Have a personal experience or story that aligns with our investigations? We'd love to hear from you. Visit our website at tvi.show and reach out through our contact form. While we can't feature every submission, we review them all, and your story might be featured in an upcoming episode. To support our continued investigations, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter or channel member. Your contributions make these explorations possible and give you access to exclusive content, early releases, and monthly behind-the-scenes discussions with our team. Don't forget to check out our merch store. We've got everything from TVI-branded t-shirts and hoodies to stickers and coffee mugs, perfect for showing your support while keeping the mysteries close. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time as we continue to explore the things visible and invisible.